Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TechGeek webinar series, our endeavor to impart techies. We believe that sharing of knowledge is the key to enhance our skills and grow us as professionals. With this principle in mind, we have initiated a series of webinars conducted by industry experts to give you all a crisp insight of various domains. The topic of today's session is Transition from Technology Professional to Product Management Career Charter. Our moderator for the session today is Professor Pinkesh Shah, Director of Programs, Institute of Product Leadership. I would request Professor Pinkesh to introduce all our guest speakers to the audience.
Hey, good evening there. This is Pinkesh. Today is going to be an exciting time because we've got a series of exciting speakers here with Ram, who's the Vice President for Product Management for Yahoo, followed by, and he's going to talk a little bit about the product management as a career path and his experiences in the last decade or so of having doing this, the drivers behind the product management function. How do people end up choosing that career path? Is that the right career path based on the individual personality and all of that? So we'll have a little Q&A with him. We also have the privilege of Vishy joining us, who's actually an executive coach, a phenomenal speaker, and somebody who's been coaching a lot of CEOs and senior executive management around the world, especially with its focus more in India now on the leadership skills and what he sees as the kind of necessary and sometimes the missing ingredient for a lot of product leaders. We'll then be joined by Rahul. Rahul is an ex-vice president of product management at McAfee. He's also now the practice head at a management consulting firm, an educational academy for product management called Adaptive Marketing. And he's going to talk a little bit about this new program that's getting launched in India, which is called ICPM. And he describes it to us as a mini MBA for product management, product marketing. And that's me. I represent the Institute of Product Leadership, a premium B school that's kind of focused more on R&D and technology leaders. And we deliver a lot of executive MBA programs for the product management, product marketing functions. So with that, without further delay, because I know Ram is actually in California right now at the Yahoo headquarters, and he's joining us live from there. So Ram, a very, very early morning to you. Can you hear us?
Thank you, Pinkesh. Awesome. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, we can. So thanks for joining. It's a little early there in California, but a couple hundred folks here at the TechGeek are kind of excited to hear from you. So all yours.
Okay, thank you, Pinkesh. So welcome everyone. And what I wanted to spend the next minutes is essentially giving you an overview of how how we view product management as a career profession. Why do people make the shift? What do we look for in product managers? And then also just talking a little bit about how do people get there. So moving on to the next slide, Pinkesh, if we could. So product management, the why and the what. And a lot of us didn't start off in product management. We started off in other functions. I started off in engineering, and so a lot of others started off in other functions. But eventually, we all become product managers. And the reason for that is a few things. One is, as you start to work on products, you start to realize that at least many of us who made the shift start to realize that we really want to own all aspects of the product, in the sense of you want to become a CEO of the product, where you handle this product all the way from strategy through delivery, and then its success in the market. So essentially, you want to be held accountable for the success of the product. And what that means is that you really need to understand what is the product and who is it for, the why and the what of your customers. So essentially, what are the markets that you operate in, what are these markets about, understanding the customer problems, understanding the customer very deeply. And many of us, when we work in other functions, don't necessarily focus on that. We focus on the how of it. We really focus on the delivery, whether it is the technology aspects of it, whether it is the manufacturing aspect of it, or those kinds of things. But we don't sometimes think about the customer. So product manager, a good one, and those of us who make that live this on a daily basis, really try to get into the head of the customer and really understand their problems. And the third thing, which is pretty critical, is that you want to own all parts of the success of the problem, which is everything from working with internal people to also working with external people to make it a success. So ultimately, it's about delivering a compelling, competitive, and profitable solution to the market problem. Next slide, please. So when we look at product management, there are possibly three major areas that we look for in a dimension of product management. The first one being the functional expertise. This is about being the nuts and bolts of being a product manager, which is everything from, like I mentioned, understanding your customer, which means market research, understanding the competition the environment that you operate in, the other companies that are servicing the same customers, which is a competitive analysis, really understanding the customer problem, and hence from that, figuring out what the requirements are for a new product that we may be launching in the market, or for requirements for enhancing an existing product. And then finally about breaking that down into what we call features, and then putting together a roadmap which just extends over a number of years. So a product manager always balances the short-term deliverables of the business with the long-term success of the business itself. So a product manager really straddles both sides of the fence in terms of doing that. So the functional expertise is very critical in terms of how we think about the tools that the product manager uses. The second area is domain expertise. And the domain expertise doesn't matter. I mean, there is a popular notion that to be a product manager, you need to be in the technology arena, like in mobile, or internet, or software. But that's not true. There are domain experts in other areas as well. Automotive. I started off in automotive myself and then moved on to software. So there are people in pharma. So essentially, product manager is really more a way of living in some sense within a company or product company, where essentially there are many domains that people operate. The second thing is the technology depth for the domain. So this is not about building the product or really understanding the nuts and bolts of engineering, or in software case, really being the person who writes the code. This is about understanding the technology that you work with. And the reason for that is you really need to know what is possible, or what could be possible. And then building a solution or a solution to a problem that the customer has using those technologies, but ultimately it can be delivered by other members of your team. The third area is understanding trend shift. This is really important because every domain is changing constantly. And it's very important for the product manager to keep an eye on what is changing, so that they see that both as an opportunity to bring in new types of technology or new types of changes in the domain. It opens up new opportunities, or perhaps even opens up a new opportunity with a new customer segment that they have not been addressing. The third area, the first two are much more hard skills, right? Because this is about actually using tools to achieve something. The third area, which is actually as important as the other two, is soft skills. And soft skills really is several traits of a product manager. One is leadership by influence. A product manager rarely has people, hardline reporting into them. In many cases, they are individual contributors, even at very senior levels. And really, but the thing that a product manager does, since they work with so many different people, is they become leaders by choice. And they become leaders by others looking up to them in terms of understanding the customer, understanding the market, understanding competition. And so they lead by influence. They they have to exert many different kinds of skills to actually be able to do that. The second thing is passion and belief. A product manager can create an excellent atmosphere for the whole team in terms of bringing their passion and belief of success to the market, to the team itself. So that is internally, and then externally being able to project that with the customers for the success of the product. And the last but not least is the fact that they're outstanding communicators. This is not just oral communication, it's written communication, it's all forms of communication. Where the product manager is not afraid to go out and actually sell people in some sense, internally or externally, about the fact that their passion and belief and their leadership make everybody successful. So they're really good communicators in making everybody understand where they stand, how they need to operate, and what does success mean to the overall. Pinkesh, moving on to the next slide. So how does this work? So how do you become a product manager? So there are possibly two paths. I mean, you don't exit generally from your undergraduate. People graduate with many degrees, but over time there are two ways in which they can become kind of move towards becoming a product manager. One is what I would call education accelerator. This is where you would go out and get an MBA, or you would get some other kinds of a certification that actually trains you, giving you the tools necessary to becoming a product manager. Or they could go through very specialized programs, and this is something that there are people who go through very verticalized programs. Even experienced product managers undergo continuous education in order to achieve some of these results. The second way of doing this, and this is and I've seen successes in both ways. The second way of doing this is work experience based. So people starting out start to get more curious about the product that they're working on, and they're starting to understand markets and customers. Even while you are an engineer or you are a manufacturing person or whatever, you start to understand the market and the customers that you're working with. Who are your customers? And one of the traits I didn't mention in terms of being a product manager is that they're very curious people. They really want to know more. They really want to understand who they are that they are servicing. So starting to understand, so you could start out by starting to understand working, with your product manager, for example, on both understanding the market as well as stretch projects or side projects. Product managers always have more on their hands than they can do. So they're always happy to have somebody who's stepping up, perhaps kind of wants to help out on, let's say, market research, or going out and talking to customers to collect data, or analyzing the market in terms of understanding the competition. So a lot of people start to work on these side projects along with their product managers and start to learn what the product management function is about. The good part of doing this is that they can then learn, they can understand whether they want to become product managers or are they comfortable continuing to do what they're doing. So that's one way to do that. And then last but not least, there are a lot of forums, public forums for product managers, particularly in India over the last few years. Some of these are starting to develop across many cities across India. These are good places for to go and network with others who are either thinking about doing the same thing or already in the profession, and understanding from them as to how they either making the journey or made their journey and what they do on a daily basis. So that's what I had as an introductory set of slides. In case I'll let you take it.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, Ram. And Mohini, are we going to take questions as and when it comes along, or should we wait till the end?
That is totally your take, Mr. Pinkesh. If you want to take
so
it
feel
up.
Free to, yeah, feel free to ask questions, guys, because let's make this as interactive as possible, which I know it's sometimes hard over a webinar, but let's at least give it a shot. Now, while we have questions from the audience, I had a couple for you, Ram. I mean, you mentioned, three aspects of the product management, and essentially the whole domain expertise. Do you understand enough about that domain? The whole functional area. Do you know how to build a business plan? Do you know how to do customer insighting? What are the different formal methodologies of even doing market research? And the third one was your soft skills, leadership skills, which includes everything from communication to negotiation to all of that. Now, you obviously are a vice president in one of the kind of most darling companies of the world, I should say, and certainly in India. And I'm sure you're hiring, and you hire a lot. If you had to place a prioritization in terms of weights, if across those three things, especially when somebody is coming into the organization, maybe fairly new to the role, is there one factor more important than the other out of the three that you mentioned?
Yeah, good question, Rakesh. I think all three are important, but the way I would look at this is the first thing we do is we look for functional experts. So this depends on whether it's an entry-level person or it is somebody who is, who's experienced product manager whom we are looking to hire. Let me start with the experienced product manager first. In that case, we would definitely, the first thing we would look for is functional expertise. And the reason for that is if this person knows the domain, has all the right tools and has shown past record of having used them effectively, then that's one less area for us to, for that person to kind of come up to speed. The second thing we look for is the soft skills. We need to, we look for demonstrated ability to being a leader, success, how good are they in communications, etc. And then the third area is domain. And in a lot of cases, especially in areas like ours, which is the internet or mobile, these are a lot of these are emerging fields, and we don't necessarily find people with a lot of domain expertise, particularly in India. So what we look for there is the demonstrated ability for this person to be actually learning. So have they worked, across domains in the past where they have shown the ability to actually switch domains and the ability to learn? So we test for those kinds. So the way I would stack rank this is to look for functional expertise 1, soft skills 2, and then domain expertise 3.
Got it. And this is you're saying more for the experience or more for the newbies who are trying to get into this the career path?
Yeah, these are for the experienced product managers that we're looking to bring in. Now, for a new product manager, we do a couple of things. One is, of course, we look to hire new graduates from MBA schools who come in initially as interns for us. Some of them do. They join us as summer interns and spend the summer with us, and then they go on, and then we make offers to some of them. And there are others that we recruit directly from university. So that's, when I talked about becoming a product manager. So that's the first step, which is education accelerator. Somebody who has gone through an equivalent coursework for an MBA or a mini MBA or something like that. The second kind of person we look for is our internal candidates who are looking to move from, let's say, engineering or quality assurance or some of the other areas into becoming a product manager. In which case we follow the path that I mentioned, which is essentially we look to pair them up with a product manager who they already either work with or some other experienced product manager in the company who can give them projects, they work on side projects, etc. And in parallel, they may be doing other kinds of certification or something in addition to that to gain some of the tools. But we give them on-the-job work experience and then test to see whether they actually will make a good product manager. And if they do, then they transition over to becoming a product. So we follow both paths.
Excellent, and this is also a great opportunity because they, they might think what product management is, but unless you start doing some of it, it might be hard, and they might realize, boy, I'm better off as a pre-sales or a techie or an architect, or even a project manager for that matter, rather than getting into a more strategic role, right? So that might be a good.
That's right, absolutely, and sometimes people also gain an appreciation for how to think about customers, and they just become better in whatever they're doing already, because they're now thinking customers other than just thinking about whatever short-term goals that they have in mind. So overall, actually, we find that it improves the dialogue that happens within the company and their ability to gain empathy for the customer.
Got it. So a couple of questions have come in, and I'm just going to try and maybe combine one or two here in the interest of time. So Saurabh Joshi has a question on product management certification. A related question from Pradeep is how much does an MBA degree weigh in the overall product management role? So you mentioned a little bit about MBA certifications, which is obviously the kind of questions that we're having here from the audience. So in your opinion, how helpful is that as a hiring manager for you to be able to look at this credential and say, okay, how important is this overall into the weighing factor in your decision making?
See, the thing is, the reason we look for, so let's say an MBA, for example, or an equivalent coursework that they've done, or courses or certification they've done, is because then we don't need to worry about the fact that will this person have functional expertise or not, because a lot of these courses start teaching you the tools that are needed to becoming a product manager. Obviously, they have not used it yet, in which case they will do that on the job, but at least they know the frameworks that are necessary. For example, how to do effective customer research, how to do effective competitive analysis, how to take make decisions. So those kinds of things are available. The second thing is many of these courses and like the MBA programs, for example, they teach also soft skills. They teach you about communication, teamwork, how to communicate your mission, vision for your product or some area that you're working on. So a lot of the soft skills, at least the tools necessary for the soft skills, are also made available when you're going through these kinds of certification or degree programs. So those two things are, like I mentioned earlier, are 1 and 2 that we look for in terms of, a good product manager, above average product manager. So that's the reason why it's one of the paths that I mentioned to becoming a product manager is you go do these kinds of courses. Obviously, the courses only give you the tools, and then you have to apply them, and that comes with on-the-job training. So we look to see, does the person have the right tools? We test for that in our interview process. We look to see if this person can communicate well. And then we bring them in, and then of course we see also whether this person has a good credentials in terms of, past understanding and learning, so that they can pick up new domain easily. And then that's how we look for in a person who's coming in from the outside.
Makes sense. So two things I kind of noticed, right? One is you said that it's not necessarily that you have to come from the same domain. People do shift domains all the time. Looks like you did that early in your career path. As you mentioned, you went from the automotive industry to the IT, the software side. So so I think it's what's more important than as you do that transition is to also be able to demonstrate that functional skills. And certainly what you're saying is that the MBA or the certification could help, communicate that it's been validated at a certain level, at a certain baseline, right?
That's right, exactly.
Now here's another question from Rishikesh, who talks about, how is this product management role, different from a systems analyst or a business analyst role? And often we see a lot of business analyst role, obviously, especially in the IT services or services space. First of all, do you even have, looking at your own experience at Yahoo, do you have like a business analyst role? And the second question maybe related to it is, how do you see that being, different than a full-fledged product management role?
Yeah, we do have business analyst roles, but they are really more in what we call our analytics team, where we look at customer data and try to drill down on customer behavioral issues, or what people are doing, let's say on the internet. But the difference I see is the fact that I think business analyst is a critical role, and nothing to minimize what they do. But the thing is, the business analyst is actually looking at only one slice of data that we interested in as a product manager. A product manager, on the other hand, is looking at a 360 view of the product itself and really understanding, using the data that the business analyst provides, for example, to help frame what the customer is, who the customer is, and what they're doing. But that doesn't help sometimes get the idea of what is the customer problem that they're facing. So that's the other aspects that the product manager will look at, is not just looking at, what's the customer doing today, but also what does the customer's profile look like as they look ahead, and what is changing in the market or the environment around them that opens up new opportunities, and then be able to translate that very quickly into a set of what we would call requirements for the customer. So and then of course working with the other internal team members to delivering the product and then taking it to market and communicating its value, etc. to the customer. So it's a much more of a 360 role as a product manager than just what perhaps a business is running over.
Got it. So it's much more encompassing, and maybe this is kind of a subset of what you might need, but there's a lot more. A related question from Sunil Kaur is, hey, how is this different than project management in that case? We talked about business analyst. But how is this different than, and I'm sure we've seen companies where we have both project managers and product managers.
Right.
So yeah.
The product manager defines, I was just going to say that the project manager's role is critical in making sure that the delivery of the product happens in time, and it's delivered to the customer's hands very quickly. I mean, typically, the project managers I've worked with are stellar people in terms of making sure that every stakeholder in the business is actually tracking to what their commitments are, and so that the product manager has defined the why and the what. The engineering teams, etc., are people who are building the product, are the how in terms of using technology to deliver to the requirements that we've defined. And then the project manager really is stitching all of this together to make sure that everything gets delivered on time. Right? To keep the trains running on time and making sure that everybody is aware of their accountability and their tracking to it. So it's a very critical role in terms of making sure everything gets done. but it is not a, it's a different function than what a product manager's role is in the team, but equally critical.
Got it. And I think we were chatting earlier. There's a lot of people who transition from project management to product management, and that's because they probably want to go more from the tactical side to the more strategic side, right? That's kind of another way.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Looking at it. In many companies, these two functions sit within the same group, so that they work very closely together. And like you rightly said, people go from project managers into becoming product managers, because they just work so closely with product managers, they just become, move in that direction themselves.
Super. Here's another question from Tejas. And so Tejas's question is more around, how do you kind of transition more from, product services company as you take up a move towards product management? So, are people working in the services industry something that, can move up to product management? And from your own viewpoint, would you be open to looking at candidates who don't necessarily come from a pure product background, but maybe more product engineering services background or services background?
Yeah. No, we have examples of people who have made that move from services companies into becoming product companies and product managers. The difference is, of course, that in services companies, it's about taking existing products and stitching them together into a solution that, and of course, building code around it to make sure that this is particularly in the software services domain, to deliver a solution to the customer. But in many cases, the unique solution for a customer, and they don't have a cost-cutting product in that sense. Where I've seen successful people moving from the services organizations into a product organization. In many cases, they actually go through either a certification program, or in many cases, they've gone back to their MBA and then they enter the product companies. Or services companies even today, there is a push to productize, where essentially they're looking at services that they're delivering repeatedly for different customers, and then look at the commonality of that and be able to convert that into a product. So there perhaps other opportunities even within existing services organizations to start moving towards becoming a product manager.
Perfect. Yeah, makes sense. So here's a couple questions from Purvi, and maybe a related question from Sudeep, which is, how do you work with the product management and more of the technology track people, right? So people who are kind of solutions architect, people who are in the technology, but still maybe a little bit of customer-facing ladder. How would you? The question is, how do they work together? Obviously, and is there a set of interactions that's kind of best practices between, let's say, a solution architect, an engineering leader, and a product manager?
Yeah, there definitely is. I mean, like I mentioned in the beginning, the product manager is, in some sense, holds the success of a product in their hands, because ultimately, they have to be clear, or they have to have made the right decisions when they're defining the product. So in that sense, working very closely with sales folks, marketing people, solution architects, etc., in one, understanding what is the customer pain points today is very important. So there is a certain amount of work that happens before a product gets made. Then when they take the product to market, the product manager is responsible to make sure that they're translating the product that is, trying to solve the customer's problem, and translating that into something that the customer values, so that they're able to go out, the other stakeholders in the business, whether it is people who are customer facing the sales aspects, they are able to go out and talk effectively about the value of the product to the customer and be able to match that to the pain point that the customer is having. So product manager has a touch point with external facing folks, clearly right through the product life cycle. Now on the engineering side, the product manager has to make sure that the engineering teams are really understand what is it that that they are trying to address, so that they have a very clear picture of who the customer is, what are the pain points they're having, and what would they value. Because engineering can build a lot of things, but they really need to focus on what is the most critical pieces that the customer is going to value. And that's where the relationship with the engineering manager becomes really important, because they have to work very closely together in making sure that they're prioritizing very clearly what needs to be built and getting it built on time, so that the product manager can then work with the other people to take the product to market. So the relationship between an engineering manager and a product manager has to be very, very tight.
Excellent. Okay, so there's a lot of questions. Here we have from Sri Mahesh, from Raj, from Ankur Jain, and a couple others, Sharad, and a few others. So I think all of their questions, if I were to paraphrase, you mentioned this MBA and mini MBA and relevant program. Is there is there a program like this in India, and where can we find more information? So I think maybe that's a great question that we will reserve, not so much for Ram, although Ram, you can comment on it. We'll reserve it for Rahul, who is actually going to talk more about that program and what's getting launched in India. So great questions, but I think let's pause answering that until we get to Rahul. Here's one more. SaaS. So they're saying software services, software as a service versus typical product. Is the product management different? Is everything you said still applicable to both? Or if you're in a software as a service, cloud computing type of product, then product management, is that any different? Does it follow different rules than what you've said? That's the question here.
Yeah, I think where it is different is the domain. So now even within software, there are many different domains. And software as a service, cloud computing, and even within cloud computing, it breaks down to whether it's infrastructure computing or applications. All of these are domain expertises that somebody has to gain when they work there. But the skills that I mentioned, whether they're the soft skills or the functional skills, they don't change. That is the reason why we focus on functional skills and soft skills as primary selection criteria, because the domain changes so much that you could be working even within cloud computing or even within software as a service, and that itself is changing on a daily basis. So if you're not, if you don't have the first two skill sets, you're not keeping an eye on the market, you're not trying to constantly understand your customer, you're not watching the trends in the market, then you really are going to miss the boat in terms of understanding the domain. So that's why we don't focus as much on domain, because we expect the product manager to keep up. So I would say the functional skill set, soft skills translate very nicely across anything that you work on. But it's the domain expertise that changes, and if that's an area that somebody is passionate about working on, then they need to start picking up domain expertise there in that space.
Got it. Makes sense. Here's a question. Okay, so that's one more question on the whole which certifications will be relevant and MBA. So I think we'll defer that until a little later, till Rahul comes on and talks a little bit about this. But here's another one, from a scope and growth. So this is a question from Harsha, and his question is, hey, what's the scope and growth of product manager as a function, as a role in India within an organization? So that's actually a question that's related to some of the other questions that Ankur and Faisal and others have asked, which is, how do you kind of move up the career path? At the end of the day, where does this career path even land up being? So any comments? I know you probably have traversed this all the way now to becoming the vice president for product management. What are your thoughts there?
No, I think ultimately, product managers are as much can climb into the CEO's role within a company as anybody else coming from other functions. So we have seen examples of that, quite effectively, where people come out of product management ranks and gain such an appreciation for the overall business that eventually, they become, leaders of the company. Now, in terms of the opportunity in India, I think it's a great question, because that is evolving rapidly. The opportunities are opening up considerably. And the reason for that is, one is, large companies like ourselves, who are looking for adding on, who are transitioning, the MNCs are moving up from delivery centers into becoming product centers. So these will by necessity require specialist functions like product management and user experience design, senior architects, those kinds of roles. The second driving function that I see in India, particularly right now, is startups. NASSCOM tells us that we have almost over 3,000 startups in India. And this is in software alone, right? This doesn't include pharma, it doesn't include manufacturing, it doesn't include a whole bunch of other kinds of companies which are starting up. Many of them, by necessity, are starting to look at markets, not just in India, but looking beyond India, and are looking for product managers. So the opportunity for a product manager, actually that is one of the biggest gating functions today. I know that for a fact in startup companies, software startup companies in India. They're not able to find good experienced or good well-trained product managers who can come in and start immediately focusing the company and the product that they're working on towards the customer. So clearly in the as we look ahead, the opportunity is going to be fairly large, and it's really going to be gated by the lack of availability of product managers than by the lack of opportunity for them. So clearly I think the product management function has got a lot of scope in it.
Excellent. Very promising to hear that. And this is from a guy who, is not giving an academic view. He's from the industry, one of the senior veterans of product management in this part of the world. So that says a lot. Now, maybe one last quick question on this, and then kind of moving on to our next speaker. But the question is more from, say, Naveen. Naveen Sisodia has asked the same question, similar to that is Mahesh Mahali and others. So basically the question is, we talked a little bit about, engineering and architect and kind of they moving into product management. We also talked a little bit about how project managers and business analysts eventually aspire to become a product manager as they kind of move from tactical role play to more strategic, as you call the CEO of the program. Now, what about sales? What about pre-sales? What about BD, business development, and kind of more pure outbound, completely outbound customer selling function? What's your advice for them as they kind of look forward to get into the product management function?
No, I think they immediately bring customer knowledge to the table. So I think, like I mentioned earlier, right, the first thing, one of the big skills is the fact that how well do you understand your customer. And salespeople, just by function, what they do, are living with the customer on a daily basis and really, feeling the customer's pain point. So I think, clearly they bring one component of what is required in product management right off the bat, the customer empathy and the market, and they are constantly selling against their own competition, so they know what's going on. All of these kinds of things. So they immediately bring that. By nature, salespeople are good communicators because of the fact that they have to go out and sell the product. And so they're very good at, tuning themselves for what the customer is, what will attract the customer to buying their product. So again, soft skills. So they're very good with soft skills. So they have the first two. Now the question is for them to switch to becoming a product manager. Do they, they need to kind of switch hats a little bit and go from, inside out selling to becoming an outside-in kind of a person and start picking up the domain that they operate in and start getting more interested in the technology of what they work on, and then doing those kinds of things so that they can take the outside-in skill, the customer empathy skills that they already have developed, and translating that to be much more effective in building something, internally, working with internal stakeholders on building. And I think that's where, that's the transition I see in a lot of people who are external facing today need to make to actually becoming a good product manager.
That's a very good point. So the fact that you are selling and hopefully you're good at what you do, which is positioning, selling, you probably already have good amount of domain expertise and by de facto function some soft skills as well. And so then it's a matter of acquiring the functional skills in terms of kind of more formal methodologies of everything else that you mentioned in the formal skills bucket, right? Super. So, hey, with that, let the questions keep on. Yeah, super. Hey, so with that, let the questions keep on coming. And it's a good segue. You mentioned soft skills and kind of moving from sales to more inbound function. Now, let's kind of turn our attention to our next celebrity speaker here, Vishy. Vishy is a very well-known guy in the CEO circles, in the executive management circles of this country. and other parts of the continent as well. So his job is he kind of works with executives, especially CEOs and one level down, and kind of coaches them on more leadership skills, soft skills. The other day he was describing to me his role as being the mirror to the organization, and kind of sometimes you don't know what you might be doing, and so his job is to kind of fine-tune and unlock the potential. So, hey, Vishy, a question from what Ram said is one of the 3 pillars, if you will, of the stool for a product manager is soft skills. So what's your take on it with all the extensive work you've done in the last 2 decades in this whole space of leadership skills?
Hi, Venkesh, and hi to everybody out there. So that's a good question, but before I kind of delve into answering that question, perhaps it's important to also look at soft skills and understand what soft skills really means. There seem to be a fair bit of misconceptions around this whole area of soft skills. A lot of us think of soft skills as this touchy-feely, emotive, HR kind of a thing that needs to be done. The fact is that soft skills actually embraces a fairly wide area, and it is about everything which lies in the human interaction space. So it's about personality, it's about the facility with language, and the two important things that Ram was highlighting. One about the ability to influence stakeholders without having direct authority, and the other was about communication and powerful communication, which is extremely crucial in terms of persuasion, in terms of influence, in terms of aligning people, etc. So in that sense, soft skills that we are referring to, quote unquote, is about everything from optimism to communication to influence to the ability to negotiate, the ability to align, and so on and so forth. And the reason why it's important, and coming back to the question that you raised, Venkesh, is that at every level of the organization, as you move up, there are different filters applied to what you would typically refer to as success criteria. If you went down to our educational system, the typical success criteria is about individual effort, perhaps an ability to memorize large amounts of data and then regurgitate that in an exam. But as you move into the organization, the filters begin to change. At an entry level, it's perhaps more about the individual and his ability to apply what he has learned, plus an ability to work in a team. And as you go further up, these filters again begin to change. And what Ram is referring to in terms of functional skills and domain become at a certain level almost taken for granted. This is just minimal requirements that you need to get up there. So when you are coaching a CEO or a CXO, the part of functional and domain competence is just taken for granted. And therefore, what becomes the differentiator really is his quote-unquote soft skills, which allows him allows him the ability to actually lead a team towards success. So all the other things that we talked about, whether it was influence, whether it was building consensus, whether it was the ability to negotiate with stakeholders, actually begin to become the most crucial criteria for his success in the organization. Just as a case in the point, if there was a study in the United States which was done over a longitudinal study, which was done over a period of time, where they actually took students who had an IQ above 150, and just as a reference point, Einstein's IQ was 150, and they basically tried to look at how their careers went, and what they found was that 1/3 of the people actually fell into the non-successful category as we define it now, vis-a-vis salaries, the kind of jobs they hold. And the reason primarily was their inability or their lack of these specific personality traits or social graces. So just to answer your question, the fact is that soft skills at a certain point becomes the core differentiator in terms of success or failure within an organization.
That's an amazing insight, and I certainly can understand and appreciate some of the things that you mentioned, because what happens is, and maybe just to paraphrase, right? So what you're saying is that while Ram mentioned the domain expertise, the functional expertise, and maybe the leadership expertise or the soft skills, what you're saying is that as you move up higher in the organization, the first two is almost kind of a given, right? So if you've been working in Cisco for 10 years, well, I mean, you expect it to know everything there is to know about networking. The question is, what's needed to move up now is your soft skills, is your leadership skills, as you mentioned, right? Not so much on the other two factors, right?
But for the other two factors, Pinkesh, there's what you refer to as a threshold. So you have to cross the threshold of hard skills, but that's a given. That if you don't cross it, you don't reach there. But beyond that, the real differentiator becomes leadership. Back to you, Pinkesh.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was just talking on mute. So, certainly it's important to get soft skills and leadership skills at actually all levels, right? Right from, I wish, B schools taught more of this and engineering schools taught more of this, because, we've seen in real world that it's not just building the business plan. It's not just, having the bright idea. It's how you communicate. It's how you influence. It's how you convince. It's how you negotiate that actually gets you. I still remember, my boss a few years ago in the U.S., he kind of told me that, look, hey, you don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. And, I probably didn't understand the gravity of what he said at that time, but boy, he was so right in everyday parts of our life, but definitely in the professional world. So my quick question to you before we move on to Rahul is there's a lot of talk about, the soft skills and the leadership skills, and the comments we hear back sometimes is, well, that's kind of, watch and learn, right? You acquire them by on the job, you do a kind of trial and error, you do a little bit of fail and learn. So in your opinion, since you're the kind of resident expert on this, in your opinion, do you believe that there's actually a science behind this, or there's a formal methodology of kind of understanding and practicing this, or this is really more you just gotta go immerse yourself, and through osmosis you'll get this?
So part of learning obviously happens through experience, but the fact is that with the aspirations that the current generation carries, you need to accelerate your learning, and without that you're not going to be a success at the workplace. And acceleration therefore requires that you use not just the experience lever or the immersion lever, as you were calling it, but also other important ones. And one of them clearly is, and Ram spoke about it as well, which is around education. So you've got to identify the key skills that you need, be it influence, be it conflict resolution, be it working across cultures of different countries. And once you've identified them, you have to educate yourself both from an experience framework and also from a cognitive theoretical framework to understand what these are. So to answer your question directly, yes, there is a lot of science behind each of these, whether it's Charlene's work on influence, or whether it's William Urey's work on negotiation and getting people to say yes, whether it's Bradford and Cohen. So there's multiple frameworks that people have researched and come out with, which allow people a glimpse of what can be done. So these skills can be learned, and if you want to accelerate the learning, then you've got to invest in learning it vis-a-vis education, vis-a-vis your own experimentation, and vis-a-vis looking at feedback as another lever for understanding what you lack and therefore improving in that.
Got it. So the bottom line is you're saying there's a lot more to it than just trial and error, and it looks like there's a whole systematic science behind some of these things, as well as just like there's an engineering science, there's a computer science discipline, right? There's a whole leadership discipline, looks like.
Yeah. And
awesome. Now, sure.
I think just an added point was that it's not just the skills that one must look at, but it's also a fair bit of work that needs to happen in terms of your own personality. So understanding your strengths, your preferences, so working around psychometric tests, understanding what you're good at and what you're not, is also another part of your personal development. So it's not just skilling around tips for negotiation, but it's also understanding who you are as a person and therefore what you can deploy at the workplace. So both of them have to run in tandem for you to be a successful executive.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well said. Well said. So a question from Geeta on this topic then. So when it comes to negotiation, what's the important point to be kept in mind especially when you're doing across countries in a more international scenario. So I know that probably will take a whole hour of going to the real framework and all, but if you had to answer this in 30 seconds, what would be your quick one, Vishy?
Well, what you're saying is absolutely right. To just answer that question in 30 seconds is a big challenge. But one must understand that negotiation ultimately is about working with people who have interdependent goals. So the one thing that usually makes or breaks a negotiation is that we tend to go and work with people around the positions people hold, either the psychological positions or the factual and material positions they hold. And the one key to breaking that deadlock is actually to move beyond positions, to look at the actual interests of the parties who are actually in the negotiation. And once you are at the level where you have the trust and the ability to discuss the actual interests that each of the parties have towards that goal, most of the times you end up with a fairly a collaborative win-win solution. So that's the only thing I would perhaps say in this short time. But like you said, it's a whole science in itself on how you negotiate, and especially if you're negotiating across cultures. But I'll restrict my reply to that.
Awesome. Hey, well, thanks a lot. Truly appreciate the insights, and let the questions keep on coming. Hopefully we answered that question, Jit, from you. Now, in interest of time, just kind of a lot of questions have been asked here, and maybe Rahul, while you go over the program details, maybe we start answering a few questions up front, right? So the first one from Abhinav Jha was, hey, look, we talked a lot about the kind of mini MBA or doing a formal education to accelerate those who are already in the product management function, maybe, but maybe are doing it more intuitively, more ad hocly, and want to move up the career path faster, as Ram also mentioned, is to kind of get some interventions, as well as for those who are just about to get in. So the question is certificate versus MBA or both. So is there a quick answer to this? Are you planning to answer some of this in your description of the program as well?
Yes, definitely. But since the question has come up, let me just address it here. Typically when you look at the MBA curriculum, you learn about a lot of disciplines. You learn about human resources, operations research, statistics, finance, organizational behavior. So when people ask me about career guidance, my question back to them is, what's your real interest? Most people, when they do an MBA, they need to be in the right environment before they can start making a difference, before they can start applying what they've learned in the MBA. It really goes back to, what are your real interests? So if you really care about HR, finance, then I advise people to go for an MBA, because it kind of gives you a platform from which you can launch into different career path or a different role in the organization, a different part of the organization. But if you're someone who wants to grow in your company, contribute on the business side, interface with customers, and enhance your prospects in that area, my advice is going for a certification program, and we'll go into the details of the ICPM program here. But the reason for going for the certificate program is because it is very focused, it is very targeted, it expands your capabilities in very relevant manner, and you can start making a contribution right away. You don't have to depend upon the environment, depend upon having the right job to be able to make an impact and make a contribution. You can start doing that right away. So that's kind of how I look at it between a certification versus an MBA. And the certification that we are going to talk about is an internationally accredited certification program. So, while it's not a full-fledged 2-year MBA, it's a 3-month program, and that's why I kind of say it is a mini MBA, but it still gives you a lot of grounding and a lot of, approach or a way of living, as Ram put it, to understanding the business aspect, the customer pain point, and really defining the value that we are going to deliver as product professionals to our customers.
Awesome. So yeah, I think that answered another related question as well, which I saw here. that look, are there any programs available for us coming from a sales or a pre-sales to a product management function, and then some questions on more on the engineering side. How do we move ourselves? We're inspired and we are convinced now with Ram and Vishy's talk, but we now need the tools and we now need a road to walk on to kind of how to make that happen. So maybe with that, we kind of let you jump into your presentation, and as you were describing, the question almost is, why do you even want to choose a certification versus MBA? It looks like the mini MBA that you're describing gives you kind of both, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So let's go through the slides there. And Pinkesh, you skipped over your slide, but you're one of the key faculty members and founders of Adaptive Marketing. So definitely want to make sure people understand that as well. So hey, good evening, everyone. I appreciate everyone taking the time, making this investment to attend this webinar and understand how this can be impactful and make a difference to your careers. So let's get right into it. Pinkesh, can we jump into the slideshow mode so that everyone can see the slides fully?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so a little bit about Adaptive Marketing. The company is headquartered out of Silicon Valley and started operating out of India 3 years ago, and really working as a finishing school for product professionals. And by product professionals, I mean project managers, business analysts, user experience designers, engineering and QA leaders, people who are in sales functions, solution engineers, anyone who is touching some aspect of the product and the value that is delivered to the customer. And so those people who want to accelerate their career path in product management and product marketing, and that's where Adaptive Marketing has been very focused on. So Adaptive has 4 different disciplines in which we provide a lot of training and education and consulting: product management, product marketing, user experience design, and agile development. And combined with all that, as Vishy talked about, leadership and soft skills, having that as an overarching theme is also very important. So it's not just the functional and the domain skills, but also the soft skills that are important. And this is the kind of work that Adaptive has been doing for over 3 years in India. Now, Adaptive has also been the only partner in Asia for AIPMM, and AIPMM is an international body, Association of International Product Marketing and Product Management, and it's the organization that gives out credentials as a certified product manager or a certified product marketing manager, and you have to take the exams that they have. They have a curriculum that Adaptive has been certified as a partner to deliver on that curriculum and conduct those exams in India and really in Asia. So, and it's a worldwide body. It's an international organization. So this certification is very much standard across the world. So if you are a product manager at Microsoft in Seattle, or a product manager in Google in the Silicon Valley, or a product manager in India, you are on the same par as far as this certification is concerned. Okay, so that's where the recognition and the accreditation of the program comes in. So the International Certificate Program in Product Marketing and Product Management, what we call as ICPM, is really one of its kind program that we're launching in India. Quick highlights about this program. The most important aspect of this program is that it is delivered by faculty of senior practitioners, as well as professors from various institutions. But the practicality of this program is extremely important, because unless you understand what works in the real world, what doesn't work in the real world, a lot of people have been successful, but they also learn from their failures. So that's extremely important, and it's a world-class faculty. We have people from different parts of the world who are experts in their areas, who are part of this faculty. There are 23 courses across 5 different themes: product management, user experience design, agile development, leadership and soft skills, and product marketing, and a lot of different functional skills built in these areas, and they are delivered over live interactive sessions conducted online. And I'll go through a little bit more details in a future slide. There is also a face-to-face immersion that happens in Bangalore, in the Bangalore campus. And this is where all the participants in the program come to Bangalore for a 6-day face-to-face immersion where there is a lot of opportunity to network with the peers in the program, with the other participants in the program, as well as industry executives who come and provide a lot of real-world experience and the ability to network and connect with them. And we talked about the special focus on soft skills, which is very important. Cross-culture communication. There was a question on how do you apply negotiation in an international scenario. Influence building with authority. Vishy covered a lot about that. So really, this is giving a very comprehensive view, a comprehensive skill set for becoming product management and product marketing professionals. So who is the program for? As we said, product professionals, program managers, project managers, engineering leaders, architects and technologists, obviously people who are existing product managers who have been accidentally found themselves to be in that role or trying to do it in an ad hoc manner. This also serves as, again, a good finishing school for them. Solutions managers, sales support, again, everybody who's involved in interfacing with the value that's delivered to the customers. Either you are creating the value, communicating the value, delivering the value, so all parts of value management. We expect that participants have about 5 years of experience in this program. So that's because you are kind of grounded in the reality of your own organization, of the challenges that you're facing with respect to customers, and can start applying those learnings to those situations. So what's the structure of the program? So this is covered over 3 months on an online platform. We are partnering with a company called EduSpire, who have been conducting online learning programs for institutes like IIM, and they are a very well recognized company in this area that have built up a lot of infrastructure. So about 3 months intensive online instructor-led training, and then the 6 days intensive face-to-face workshop in the Bangalore campus. The online learning will happen twice a week, 3 hours on Wednesday evening, and 3 hours on Sunday morning. So that gives you an opportunity to sort of plan your day, be prepared for the online instruction, and also gives you time to assimilate that learning and sort of reflect upon it and come back on Sunday and Wednesday. So as I said, there are 5 themes, 23 different courses. So we are really looking at over 60 hours of learning led by an instructor. And then the themes that we have identified for this particular program are obviously product management. The number that you see next to each of those themes is the number of course modules that we have in each of those disciplines. So product management, user experience design and innovation, product operations, product marketing, and leadership and soft skills. So a very comprehensive kind of approach. And we can go into the details of each of those disciplines. So under product management, I'll just take one as an example. How do you establish a connection with the customer and gain insights, do market research? What are the different techniques? How can you as a product manager be here in India and still be able to connect and do research with customers across the world? And that's something that traditionally a lot of people have had questions about, but with social media and a lot of different techniques, that is no longer a barrier. Competitive strategy, win-loss analysis, why are we winning in the market, why are we losing, what does the customer think about our products, about our company, sizing the market, defining and qualifying the opportunity, who is our target segment, understanding those dimensions, preparing a business model, preparing a business plan, and be able to communicate that to stakeholders and executives in the organization to be able to get the green light and go ahead with the plan. So how do you kind of bring all those components together and say, drive the future course of the product line or drive the future course of business? So all those things become very, very core skills to have in order to really make an impact for any person in the organization. So Pinkesh, let's go forward to the next slide.
Yep.
Yeah, and then last but not the least, leadership and soft skills. And Vishy spent a lot of time sort of going over the importance of soft skills, especially as the functional skills and domain skills become table stakes and become taken for granted. So that really becomes a differentiator for growth in any career path. And then the certifications that we talked about, the AIPMM certifications for product management, product marketing, and agile. So, so that's giving a platform, building the functional skill set as Ram talked about, building the leadership and soft skills as Vishy talked about, and then making this a really globally recognized and a certified program. So that's what gives you a big sort of a big picture view of the ICPM program, what it is all about. Okay, next slide, Pinkesh. So how is this program logistically going to be administered and delivered? So as I said, this is a 3-month online program, and we start in October, so Wednesdays and Sundays, 6:45 to 9:45 p.m. on Wednesday, and Sunday 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So we have 7 online sessions in October, 8 in November, 8 in December, and then in January we have a 6-day on-site immersion week. This is the week when we have the opportunity to come together as a group, learn from the peers that have been participating along with us. There is an active study project that is involved. So the participants will come to the Bangalore campus and do their final presentations that they have been working with in groups. And they also, those projects will be evaluated by industry leaders. So venture capitalists, CEOs, and leaders of various organizations will actually come to evaluate and give you feedback on your project. And it will also give an opportunity to kind of network, understand where the industry is, what the different opportunities may be. So, so that's an excellent aspect of the program. So kind of gives you a calendar view. We start in October 2012 and go until January 2013, kind of mid-January. And the 13th to the 18th of January 2013 is the immersion week in Bangalore. So what happens in each course module? So let's go through that. So each course module will be conducted online, real time, led by an instructor. And the instructor will go through the core content. So if, for instance, we are talking about customer insights and market research, the instructor will talk about what are the different ways in which we do market research and what are the advantages, pros and cons of each type of technique. We will look at case studies from Harvard Business School case studies as well as real-world case studies of different companies. There will be a lot of interactive discussion is very important because especially that is very critical when you have to learn with your own experience. So that is critical. And we'll have assignments, we'll have some quizzes to evaluate and assess how the learning has happened, how the learning has been immersive. And as I mentioned, there will be an active study project that people will be working within groups and culminating in the final face-to-face immersion week in Bangalore. So that's kind of
so
yeah.
There was a question on that related topic, and so this comes from Ankur and a couple others. So is this program kind of recommended for people who are looking to move into product management within the existing organization, or is it also helping folks who are kind of planning for this role outside of the organization?
I would say it is applicable to both. Obviously, if you're looking for a transition to a product management role inside your organization, then think about what Ram spoke earlier. The domain skills. You already have the domain skills. You already know the industry that your organization is in. You already know the company and the people that you work with. So that transition is sometimes easier because you are kind of an expert in that domain. You know the domain very well. If you're trying to transition into a product management role outside of your organization, then you have to acquire the domain skills. So that's a little bit of a you have to set that time investment aside to be able to come up to speed with that domain. So it's really a question of how the domain skills that you already have can be leveraged in order to make the right transition. And of course, the functional skills, the soft skills that you get as a part of this program are definitely going to help you make the transition. So I hope that provides kind of a perspective of whether you want to grow in your current organization or look at opportunities outside.
Absolutely. I think the related question to that was, hey, am I going to be able to, are you going to help us with connect with the industry and, more from a, networking and helping find the right companies as well, was the question from Samuel, and then related to that from Arti. So I think you already answered that question, right? It's basically a lot of networking with industry execs, and obviously when you network, you find opportunities at different places, including, people like Ram who are kind of here on this call are the kind of folks who you will be interacting with, is yes. What I'm hearing, right?
Yes, and again, Ram brought up an excellent point, which is the gating factor is not going to be the lack of opportunity, but the lack of qualified product managers to take advantage of those opportunities. So that's where companies are looking for well-qualified product managers who can, help define the opportunity, the customer pain, and the value. So the networking is an important aspect of the program because, once you have gained those functional skills, the industry is definitely looking for this skill set. So it only makes sense for people to come together and take advantage of that opportunity.
So, here a bunch of questions on the operation side. Sriram Venkataraman has a question on, hey, will the sessions be recorded in case you miss some of these sessions, especially with people traveling?
That's a very good question. Obviously, this is something that we are currently working with EduSpire on. They have the opportunity, they have the technology to be able to record sessions. But the thing about recorded sessions is that it becomes a very one-way kind of an interaction. So as long as, in as much as you can actually participate in an online session, that's obviously going to be a lot more beneficial because it gives you an opportunity to kind of step into their shoes and experience that learning, and the discussion may or may not be directly immersive when you're just looking at a recording.
Got it. So what you're saying is this is not reading from a bunch of videos that you can just do whenever you want. There is class participation, but for those who miss, it will be recorded.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. The next question is from San PV. What's the eligibility criteria to attend this program, and the kind of process of selection? Was a related question. Are there criteria on how do people get selected to the program?
Sure. So as I mentioned in the previous slide, we expect people to have about 5 years of experience. So they have an appreciation of understanding the challenges they have in their current role, the opportunities the company has, and have that grounding is important. In terms of the specifics of how do you actually apply and get into the program, we have a process by which you can fill out an application form, and then there is a kind of a quick interview process. So we have faculty members who will interview you online and over the phone, and kind of gives us an assessment of where you are in your career, what difference you are looking to make, how you are looking to grow yourself. So we just want to make sure that we have the right group of people who are participating in the program, and that's kind of the selection process that we go through. Is to there is a application form that you fill out, and an interview process, interviewed by a faculty.
Got it. Here's a question from Anirudh. Hey, my current organization does not have a very well-defined product management ladder or a structure. Will this mini MBA help me switch careers, so to speak?
It basically, the short answer is yes, but let me qualify it back with something more. So, if you are in an organization where there isn't a well-defined roles and responsibilities, there isn't a well-defined career path, as we said earlier, there are a lot of other companies that are looking for qualified product managers. But most importantly, no matter which organization you are in, I think the way to look at it is product management is not just a function or a role, but it is a way of life and it's a way of thinking. And that thinking you can apply into your existing organization or to existing role or in a different role. So it's just making sort of a lot of savvy business sense, leadership sense, and how do you implement that right away. So that's kind of how you look at it.
Another question, Rahul, and I think this is a pattern in these couple questions I've seen is, look, is this program going to cover a lot of financial rigor necessary to run the product like a CEO? And a related question from Siddharth Iyer is, is it expected or does product manager handle product P&L, profit and loss, and the other financial side of the product?
Yeah, very good questions. So, being able to understand the financial aspects of how your product is performing in the market is extremely important. And so, when we talk about, finance in the context of product management, unlike an MBA, we're not going to go into options and derivatives and, financial instruments and things like that. But definitely we are going to look at what are the elements of a profit and loss statement. What does it mean by bookings versus revenue? What does it mean by gross margin and controllable margin? The expenses that an engineering organization incurs, the expenses that are incurred by the marketing organization, how do you quantify the return on investment of those expenses? How do those expenses impact the profitability of the product? So those are things that are very important to understand. And having that understanding gives a lot of business sense, because now you can ask a lot of questions and really get to the root of how is the product actually performing in the market, and how can we improve that? How can we take it up to the next level? So it's just getting a grounding in that area.
Here's another question from Charles. Does this program help individuals to work on real projects of product management?
You mean inside the program or outside?
So I think the question, and that's all the question says. So I think the question is more, during the program, will we be able to work on live projects, real projects, versus,
Yeah. Got it. So the Active Study project that I talked about, these are projects that are going to be given to us by our companies that we work with, and so those are real life, real world problems. So those are not necessarily some fictitious case studies that we will come up with. So when groups work with those Active Study projects, the executives from those companies will actually come and evaluate and give feedback on those projects. So yes, definitely these are going to be real world scenarios and not some fictitious scenarios.
A couple quick ones, if you can answer them quickly, Rahul, in interest of time, right? So there's about 6 or 7. One of them is, it's actually 2 questions from Sanjay. One is, is the exam done after the course? at the campus, or is it done at the house, or is it done kind of online from where they are? And the second question is, do they get PDUs as part of the PMP certification, continuous education? Is the program going to award the PDUs which is necessary for the PMI or the PMP Institute? So 2 questions.
Yeah. So for both questions, yes, the certification exam is, typically we would encourage that it is taken when you are there in the face-to-face immersion week on the campus. We kind of help just to refresh and review all the topics that we've covered in the course. And that's a great way to kind of do it when it is still alive and fresh, if you will. And in terms of the PMI certification, yes. So those are the PDU is part of the certification program.
I think somewhere earlier in your slide you had it. It's like 21 PDUs or something. We're assuming it's the same PDUs that he's asking for PMI Institute. The second part of the second set of questions which I am hearing from Sarvanan, there was another question from Monica, is basically, look, we've already done an MBA before, or we're in the process of. How is this helping? How is this going to enhance or add value to?
Yes. So if you're already in the process of doing an MBA or have already done an MBA, there is a different level of functional skill set that is available through this program. And what I mean by that is, we go specifically deep into specific areas. So the market research, the product operations part, the launch planning from a product marketing standpoint. So we go deep in those areas and really work with a lot of experiential case studies and scenarios. So that's extremely important. And so while a lot of the topics may get covered at a high level in an MBA, so if you take marketing, for example, a lot of schools have the Philip Kotler book about marketing as a textbook. And it covers a lot of information about market research and examples of market research that have been done in the past. But we actually involve a lot of practical learning as well. So you may actually sit across and do a real-life customer interview. So that becomes very experiential and immersive. So it's really, look at it as going deeper into certain disciplines where you have the opportunity to build those functional skills. Venkesh, up to you.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. I think there were 2 questions or 3 questions around this, so I'm just kind of combining it for now. One is there any scholarship? Can we pay this in installments? I think it's more of a pricing question. So do you want to maybe quickly cover that? Vandana has been asking, are the scholarships available, or can we pay this in parts, is what Sushil is asking.
Yeah, so I think that the way the program pricing is structured, that it's not something that we support. So we don't provide loans and scholarships, although you could definitely approach a financial institution for that. And then with respect to paying it in installments, we really evaluate that on a case-by-case basis, not necessarily as a policy.
Got it. Okay. So Ankur Soni has just asked, would you advise ICBM program for a non-MBA engineering graduate who've been in the work for about 10 years? So I guess the answer is yes.
The answer is yes. I mean, I would go back to asking, what are your aspirations? What are your career goals? And again, if you are someone who wants to stay in the engineering track and rise in that career path, and become an engineering leader in an organization, again, it's important to have an understanding of the entire business aspects around delivering the product. So this is important skill set from that standpoint. Or if you are looking at making a transition to product management and actually being in a more business-centric role, even then this program is very applicable to both scenarios.
Okay, so Saravanan, I think we answered your question that you have already an MBA. Will this help? And I think the answer is yes, based on what Rahul just said and explained, how this is more of a relevant, more deeper dive, and also it's the international certification that you get at the end of that. The question is from Carl, is this going to be for people who are based out of India at the moment or even outside? So that's actually a good question. I know in the last interview panel where you had me as well interviewing Rahul, there were a few folks from outside of India as well. So is this program really more global, or is it more focused right now for the folks in India?
So it is a global program for two reasons. One, the certification is global in nature. It is recognized and accredited by AIPMM, which is a global organization. And then the second is that the online instructor-led training, the very nature of it being online, affords people the ability to actually participate in this program no matter where they are. In fact, our faculty is also distributed across the world because we really want to make sure that we have the domain experts, the best-in-class people who are faculty members. Like, for example, the user experience design faculty is a gentleman based in UK, and he's a very well-respected speaker in that area. One of our guest speakers is a gentleman, David Fraden, who's again very well-respected in the product management circles. He was one of the early employees at Apple, and worked with Steve Jobs. So again, it's a global, worldwide faculty, a global worldwide certification. So obviously this program is also available for people who are not in India to take it.
Got it. Another question is from Mahesh. What certifications are included in the course?
As we're going over the AIPMM certifications, the CPM, Certified Product Manager, CPMM, Certified Product Marketing Manager, and then the PMI certification for Agile, the Agile Certified Professional.
Got it. Another question is from Tejas and several others that look, this is good. We've got opportunities that only by networking, or is there a formal arrangement or assistance for placement?
At this point, we don't have a formal arrangement for placement. We're really looking at networking as a means by which people can get to know each other better, and I think that serves a very important purpose in terms of people really discovering, finding each other, and then having the opportunity to identify the best fit in that sense, rather than sort of broad-based placement.
So placement assistance is what you're saying, but not placement guarantee.
Correct.
Got it. Okay, I think we've kind of answered a lot of these questions that they were asked before. There were some questions on the soft skills side. Hey, and this is for Vishy, from Shalu Prasant. What is the major leadership skill that should be adopted by a manager? So I guess his question is, maybe if you had to pick one, what would that be?
The answer, yeah, I was trying to respond to the question. You must realize that, like I was pointing out, at different levels of management, there are different filters, and similarly, as you grow up the chain, there are different skill sets or different kinds of aptitudes and attitudes one needs to deploy at the workplace. So I'll explain to you a very simplistic model. So when you start your journey as an individual contributor in an organization, then we talk about essentially being able to use the skill of leading your own self. So this is about self-understanding, awareness, emotional intelligence, and so on. Once you transition to being a manager, it's about leading teams. The third level is about leading functions. The fourth level is how do you lead organizations. So at each level, there are a certain set of skills or leadership qualities that you need to, and the final level is about leading change, a large change process through the organization. So in a very simplistic way, this is a frame of reference for different levels and different competencies or leadership skills that you require at different levels. So I know I'm not answering the question in a lot of detail, but maybe if we had time, we could go into each of these and talk about each competencies of what leading self means, what leading teams means, what leading organizations and leading change means.
Awesome. Thanks, Vishy. There was a question on PMP certification and what is the relevance of PMP certification on the project management side to become a product manager? So I guess that's pretty, yeah.
Yeah, I think, as we saw, project management is really about, how do you bring everything together and, make sure that the delivery happens. And while you're doing that, a project manager is, involved across the lines in kind of a cross-functional role. So a lot of project managers can naturally transition into product management because they're working with product managers very, very closely, or at least they're also working on the business side of the company or the product team very, very closely, and they have an understanding of what's kind of important. So, PMP certified professionals, project managers, that's kind of gives a good launching pad for becoming product managers.
Excellent. So, if there were some questions that were kind of asked earlier, and if we've missed it, definitely re-ask them so that it kind of goes on the top of the queue. But at this point, I think we've tried to cover just about all kinds of answers, all kinds of questions across. Just in summary, why product management? What is the different ingredients to become a great product manager that Ram kind of went over, the career path management of it, where does it ultimately lead to, and then Vishy's discussion was more around out of the domain expertise, the functional expertise, and the soft skills. How do you kind of focus on the soft skills side, and why that's even more crucial as you move up the ladder and accelerate your career path. And then kind of finally Rahul summarized with a lot of operational details as well. Which is great because it's not in a lot of theory now. You actually have an opportunity to take the next steps by looking at programs like ICPM that Rahul just went over. So I think with that we'll put an official end to this webinar, and there's some details here on the screen for you to kind of go take a look at more in more details if you're interested in the program. Now, any other parting thoughts from any of our panelists today, Ram, Vishy, and Rahul?
Just one thing, Pinkesh, is obviously the adaptivemarketing.in website has a lot of information, and I can imagine there's a lot of information to digest. But I want to thank everyone for investing their time and coming on to the webinar, and wish everyone good luck.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, from my end, just to reemphasize that if there are any questions that are left, I know we've tried to answer as many as we can, but if there's anything specific anyone wants to check, perhaps send a note to us on our website, and we'll try and respond to you or get in touch with you. So that offer stands.
Super. Ram, any final thoughts from you?
No, thank you for a patient audience. I think it's a lot of information got covered. I look forward to a lot of you becoming product managers.
Excellent. So with that, over to you, Mohini, and thanks a lot again from my side. Wish you all a very great evening, and hopefully you can use a lot of this information for you or your folks in your network.
Well, thank you so much, Pinkesh. I'm really thankful to all our speakers for this session on transition from technology professional to product management career charter. I hope it would be very helpful to our attendees. It was indeed a great session. I would also like to thank all our participants for the support in making this webinar a success. The recording of this webinar will be available on techgeek.com by tomorrow. Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.